welcome to the Crew Review Podcast, a Columbus Crew postgame show where me and another writer from Massive Report review the Crew. I'm your host, Andrew Atkins, and joining me today is a very special co-host. He is a writer from Massive Report. He's the Me and the Bryant And Me podcast. He once won first place in a Greg Berhalter lookalike contest. He's the first ever two-time co-host of the Crew Review. You know him, you love him. It is none other than Tommy Flip-Flops. Thomas Costello, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Wet Blanket. It's been quite a night, which will I'm sure the blanket will get much wetter as we get going. But I'm doing okay. I'm breathing. I get to talk to you. Crew played a match tonight. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So
did Crew play a match tonight? Because I just watched Toronto FC play a match tonight. I didn't know I saw Crew play a match tonight.
Are we getting right into the emotional overreactions? Is that it? Are we sliding right in already?
I think we're going to. Introductions out of the way. We have to get into it. I need to get it off my chest. A little thing I like to call emotional overreaction. So, Thomas, I ask you, shut off that analytical side of your brain. Reach down into your heart. Pretend that you're on Twitter and spew out the first thing that comes to your mind.
Maybe I used it during the match, but I don't have anything. After maybe it's just the years and years of being like a Cleveland Browns fan. I just eventually, after a certain point in a contest, when I know it's so far out of reach, I just shut off that emotional part of me. And you have to sit back and just be like, well, that sucked. And that's kind of where I'm at. That sucked.
It did. It did suck. And my emotional overreaction, it's something that I've held off on really talking about it this season on the Crew Review. You know my feelings on it because you have dubbed me the wet blanket because of it. I think Columbus Crew have benefited exponentially from the schedule they have had up until this point. I think tonight we were exposed, and this is going against all of my weeks of saying we're going to win the MLS Cup. This is the true feelings are coming out right now. I think tonight we have been exposed. I think we have shown that in a typical MLS season, we would be a solid playoff team, not the supporter shield leaders. And I think we just saw that by going against the team that is a front runner in the Eastern Conference.
Can we pause there real quick? Can I ask you a question? Because this always gets me and we talked about this offline a few weeks ago. We've never gotten it onto the show, but this idea of asterisk culture, this idea of asterisks, like they talked a lot with Liverpool when they won the league. Oh, it's an asterisk because they changed the rules and blah, blah, blah. Like what is different this season for the Crew than any other team in the MLS? What's different about
You're correct.
They're a team also. They're also a team that has influxed a lot of new players into their lineup. So if anything, this should be worse for the Crew because they have not had consistent training, being around their teammates and whatnot. I know this is emotional overreactions, which is now turning into a whole segment of just emotional banter, but what makes it any different for, like, why is Columbus benefiting, but no one else is? Like, what's the thing behind that?
Here's what makes it different for Columbus, and it goes for other teams as well. It's not only Columbus. Columbus Crew have benefited from being in a group where we have played FC Cincinnati 3 times. We have played Chicago Fire twice. We have played
Chicago's won their last 2 matches. 6-0, by the way, and they had us 2-0. So I think they were maybe a team that's benefited from a little more time together. But
I don't remember.
Continue, sir.
I don't remember the exact stat, but I remember it was a couple weeks ago. There was a chart that I was looking at where it had showed all of the games we played and all of the games we had won, and I believe all but one were against teams that were on the bottom half, below average in terms of wins, draws, points. So I think the difference is we're not in a bubble with a Toronto FC. We're not in a bubble with Philadelphia, who we did beat. We're not in a bubble with LAFC, with LA Galaxy. We're not in a bubble that we have had to face specifically difficult teams. Now, Am I saying we could never beat Toronto? I think we could beat Toronto. I think on our best day, we could beat Toronto. I think we saw us on our worst day. Now,
Worst
Darlington
half.
Nagbe could have changed a lot of
Well,
this.
a notoriously second half team had a very, very bad second half.
Yes. So am I saying Columbus Crew cannot win the MLS Cup? No. And this is the longest emotional overreaction segment we've ever had. I'm not saying the Columbus Crew can't win the MLS Cup. I'm not saying that we are not the best team in the league. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying today proves that there is a discussion that should be had about whether or not we are, or whether or not we have benefited from the grouping we have been put into.
And that's fair. So we will conclude that portion of emotional overreactions, because I think that they're outstanding circumstances tonight that I think that kind of makes your point not as saucy, because I think there are definitely some things tonight, like Hector Jimenez, who did not have a horrible match. Don't get me wrong. He started tonight over Milton Valenzuela. And I thought whenever I saw him in the lineup, okay, maybe is there an injury thing, or are they just trying to give him some rest, because he has had injury issues over the past year and a half, almost 2 years now. He's had some injury problems. But then he came in the second half. You had Diaz starting, which I thought Diaz did great. I thought the substitutions tonight were less than stellar. I don't think the subs that were used. They're still waiting for one player to be subbed out, and I don't think it's going to happen now that the match is over. But playing on a short rest, I know it's an excuse, but
Toronto
also
is also playing on the same rest.
But traveling on the day of, traveling to Connecticut the day of to play a match after short rest, I think we were doomed to have a letdown game, and I think tonight was definitely that, and then some.
No team is going to have flawless records. It's not
Especially
practical.
Yeah.
I mean, MLS, it's pointless to try to predict things in the MLS. It's always been, look, we could talk about this all night. We have a time frame.
That's why you have the show,
right? But I'm trying not to have a 2-hour podcast here. So emotions out of the way. And look, I'm gonna be frank. Emotions aren't out of the way this whole podcast. I have had a rough day. I am a Manchester City fan, and I am a Columbus Crew fan, and I have had a rough day. So this is gonna be an emotional podcast. Regardless, we're moving on to the Crew review. For the Trillium Cup, Columbus Crew SC taking on Toronto FC. The starting lineup for Crew looked like this. In goal, we had Eloy Room. Defensively, as we talked about, we had Hector Jimenez starting. We had Josh Williams. We had Jonathan Mensah and Harrison Awful. Moving into the defensive midfield, we had Artur and Sebastian Berhalter. Fataya Lashe not available tonight. So it looks like we are down to third string right now, which, again, plays a role.
Not a bad third string.
But it plays a role. Would we have seen the same result with Darlington Nagbe? Moving into the attacking midfield, we had Pedro Santos, Lucas Zelarayan, Luis Diaz, and the striker, Jassy Zardes. What do you feel about the lineup? We already talked about it a little bit.
Well, it's easy in hindsight to say I didn't like the lineup. Whenever I first saw it, I thought, that makes sense. That makes sense. Lashe's not playing. Nagbe's still probably out, a couple weeks if you're going off of the several weeks, a week and a half or so ago, or it feels like it was that long ago. It could have been just a few days ago.
It feels like it's been months since I've seen Nagbe at this point.
Diaz started his fourth match in a row, so that's not a shocker. His play time has warranted the extra time that he's gotten. I think the rotating attacking midfield, Caleb was finally like, okay, this is what's going to happen. Zelarayan's going to come back healthy. It's going to be Pedro, Lucas, and Diaz, and that's the three I'm going with. Because before that, with Lucas being hurt, Pedro was the only consistent one. And then you had Mokhtar coming in and out, and Etienne coming in and out, and then you even had Boateng coming on, which he hadn't seen the field, I think, since after in 3 matches or something like that. But the starting lineup, I saw it on paper as, okay, this is going to be a competitive match. Which for 45 minutes, I didn't think it was. I thought it was pretty good. It looked really good for us.
Look, it's the second game in a row where Crew have flip-flopped their play style. Against Minnesota, we saw it. We came out and we had a really good first half. We had a not as good second half. That is the inverse of how we have played up into this point in the season, where we typically have subpar first halves. Not bad, but subpar. And then we come out and we are kings of the second half. We have seen that really fall apart as of these last two games, where the second half have been just not even subpar. The second halves for Crew, the last two games have been 2019 levels of bad.
Last match, it was like the last 15 minutes. They were
Right.
really good to the last 15 minutes. You were up 2-0.
That's why
I was even watching the match thinking, well, yeah, this one's over. And then it felt like the defense was also like, yeah, this one's over.
That's
and
why
then
I compare it to 2019.
Yeah.
We saw that all of 2019. We're going into the 88th minute up 2-0, and then we are finishing the game 2-2, which is almost what happened against Minnesota. So getting into the match, we had some chances. Diaz created some chances. Fifth minute, Diaz got on the end of a cross. He fires the shot. Couldn't get it on frame, but it was a good first chance of the game.
It was a congested defensive box, but yeah, he had to get at the end of that one. That was his opportunity to kind of break through the wall. Like I joke around with, you see some players who are offensive minded, and Diaz last year was definitely scoring goals, but this year it's like, okay, if he scores one goal, he's going to score 20 goals. Like just let him get the first one, just so he can be like, oh, okay. And then he can get on more and more.
I talked about it in the last match when Diaz drew the penalty. I wish so badly they put Diaz on that penalty kick. Let him take the shot, because I think one goal and he turns from good to great, because he can take that breath. He can calm down. And we're seeing it where there was another shot by Diaz a few minutes later. It was off target, but Diaz was creating moments. And like you said, I think once you break through that ice, the floodgates open. Now, I wanted to ask you specifically, what were your thoughts the 17th to 21st minute and the 22nd to 25th minute of the game? What were your thoughts?
Well, my thought was I don't need to see the score and the timer if it means the game comes back on. That's what I initially thought. I thought that Jordan and Neil was, he's kind of running the commentary, and Jordan's talking about the physical aspects of the game and the breaking down plays and all that stuff.
I don't think they could see it either.
Play-by-play. No, exactly. Neil doing the play-by-play. You could tell that they were sitting in a room in Columbus, because they were just like, so last minute, Josh Williams had a foul. Like it brought me back to Anthony Precourt era, where if you were driving in the car and you were listening to the Crew match, you were listening to Neil and Dwight just talk about everything that wasn't the Crew match, because we didn't have a radio match you could listen to. So you're just listening to the TV feed and you're like, well, I think soccer's happening. They're talking about, their high school dance. So it kind of took me back to those old days.
And to clarify what we're talking about for anybody outside of this area who doesn't have or who didn't watch the Fox Sports stream, for the first half of the first half, we had no score. We had no time. So I tuned in a couple minutes late. I was getting my son to bed, and I rushed down, and I'm like, I turned the game off, like, okay, what's the score? Okay, apparently I don't know what the score is. I have no idea. I have no idea how much of the game I missed. I don't know. And then the score popped up. I thought, great, we're good to go now. And then the feed cut out for a pretty good stretch 2 different times. So that's for anybody who wasn't watching the game on Fox Sports. That's what we're referencing. So the feed pops back on the first time. And as it pops back on, Zelarayan gets this great chip pass over Toronto's defense, lands right on the chest of Jossie. He brings it down, fires a shot. It's blocked by the Toronto keeper. I was like, man, that would have been such a cool way to kick this feed back off, but it was not to be. Feed goes back out. There's a couple moments in the first half where Zelarayan was very close to being awesome. He took another pretty far away shot and it had a really wicked bend to it. And just above the goal, he misses that one too. Yeah. But we looked dangerous and we had some good moments in the first half. I'd say through the vast majority of the first half, Crew were in control. Crew looked like the better team.
Yeah, I think Sebastian Berhalter stepping up for that start. I mean, he got 70 plus minutes last match, and he's started matches so far this year, but his passes, um, for being as young as he is, you can tell the kind of coaching and everything he's had and just how skilled he is with the ball. Because he had one pass to Harrison Awful that was just, I think this might have been before you got on. It was probably in the first 5 or 6 minutes where it spanned the midfield and it cut through everybody just to get to Awful. Now Awful's also booking it at the end of it. I think if it was anybody else he was passing to, they would have done the quick run and then hesitate and bend
Right.
over because the ball's going out, and they turn around and do the clap thing. No, Harrison Awful's like, I don't do that. And he bolted. It was, they had their chances. Artur had a really great first half. I mean, he was passing all over the place. I think he missed. I saw Brett Hildebrandt posted that he had missed maybe about 4 passes all of the first half, which, taking Nagby out of it, that's a really solid midfield performance
Yeah.
for
I believe
distributing the ball for a
I
team
believe
that is having
our
issues holding on to the ball. Yeah.
right. Right. And I believe Artur had 39 completed passes out of 42 attempts in the first half
Yeah,
as well.
that was close.
Artur had a good first half. So like I said, we were in control first half, and it felt like we were destined to score. We kind of did. 40th minute, Santos has this great floating pass up into very similar to assists we've seen all season, where he pops
Like
the
last
ball
week.
up, yeah,
Yeah.
right in front of the goal, and Jossie gets on the end of a nice little button hook run and kicks it in the goal. But this time, it was not Jossie Zardes who found the back of the net. It was Chris Mavinga, and you might, if you're not familiar with MLS,
Yeah.
but
He's
you're a
not on
Crew
the
fan,
Crew.
yeah, you might be wondering who that is. It's a Toronto FC defender, and man, great finish, very good goal. 1-0
Clinical.
Crew.
No, you could see even too, it hit his foot at the wrong angle. Like you can tell he's trying to knock it to the left, and then it goes completely to the right. It kind of curves in. Like I like seeing an own goal when it benefits my team, but also there's a part of me that's just like, oh, I feel so bad for that guy. Although that was his third own goal in 2 seasons,
Yeah,
which
and
is more than Josie had in the Premier League in
I
3
felt
years.
I felt
So
awful for him too, but I don't think he's feeling too bad about it at this point in the night.
oh no, I think he got over it after the halftime talk.
We're going into halftime at that point. Crew 1-0. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about the game. We were in control. We weren't extremely dangerous, but we were also possessing the ball, and we were creating chances, and that's what we needed to do. A little comment on the first half. Josie Altidore gets a yellow card for just wiping out Diaz, and I'm sick of seeing Luis Diaz getting fouled for one. But right before we go into the second half, Altidore looks like he's getting a little frustrated with Diaz, throws his arm back, looks
Yeah.
like he elbows Diaz in the chin. There is no yellow, which would have been his second yellow of the match, which would have been his red card, which would have perhaps changed the way everything played out. What do you think? Did you see the foul? What did you think about it? Do you think he should have got yellow carded?
When the foul first happened, I thought that's a yellow card. Whenever they replayed it and Jordan was replaying it and kind of breaking down what she saw, she thought it was a yellow also at first glance. But watching it again, and even now talking about it and thinking about it, I still lean on that it should have been a card. If you gave him a yellow before, now the yellow he got was obvious. Like he knew that Diaz is breaking down. He's breaking down the side, and Jose's like, "There's no way in heck I'm catching him." So he just took him out. This time, he threw his arm back. It didn't. It hit him like in the chest. But
Right.
still, if you're gonna give a card before, what's different now? What's different than, Diaz is, except for now on the other side. And I know Diaz doesn't have a straight shot. He doesn't have a straight line to where he's wanting to go, but throwing your arm back like that, he didn't do that accidentally. Josie,
Right.
he does that. That's not like that. He did it on purpose.
Josie is a very physical player. He's a very mean player, and
He
Diaz
uses
was
his
causing
body. He
problems.
uses his body.
And
Yeah.
he has. I mean, Toronto's front line, man. Toronto is swole.
They don't miss chest and arm day. No, they
No,
don't.
not at all. So the other note I had, laughable now, is that the Crew's defense had shut down Toronto throughout the first half. And they did. Columbus was creating dangerous chances, and they weren't allowing much in the way of Toronto getting chances. That was not the case in the second half. Moving on to the second half, 2 minutes into the second half. Now, what we're used to seeing is Columbus scoring pretty quickly into the second half. What we saw today is Toronto 2 minutes in. Columbus has a complete defensive breakdown. That's all I can chalk it up to. Toronto crosses the ball into Pozuelo. Pozuelo, there's no fight. There's no what's the word I'm looking for?
Tenacity, gumption, verb.
There's anything, any word. There's nothing.
Emotion.
Uncontested is the word I'm looking for.
I like my words better. Yeah.
Uncontested, drops it back to Altidore, right outside of the 18-yard box. Altidore rockets it into the goal. Room gets a hand on it, but it doesn't even slow it down. You can't let Josie Altidore take shots with nobody in his path from 18 yards out. He's going to put it in the back of the net, and that's exactly what he did. 1-1 Toronto.
I'm not going to break down this entire moment because it goes into one of my players of the match. I won't say if it's best or worst, but yeah, we talked about this a few weeks ago on the first episode where we talked about Darlington Nagbe and how when he's on defense or whatever, he's just around the ball, the players around him just kind of stand there and they just kind of wait. Now, I understand on defense wanting to make sure you know where the ball's going. You don't want to, expose space. So you're trying to take up your spot and you're in your spot. But on a goal like that, it looks like everyone's just standing around at that point. Yeah. No one's closing in. Like you see Altidore on the outside of the box. You know what he does. He scored a lot of MLS goals.
And every Toronto goal tonight, I'm going to get a little bit ahead of myself, but uncontested is the word that kept coming to my mind. Toronto could just dribble directly into the goal box, and the Crew players would not even go for a tackle. They're just like, excuse me, let me get out of your way. Go on through, sir. It's what team did we watch tonight? What defense did we watch tonight? Because there is no way this is the same historic defense that allowed 2 goals through 10 matches. It's impossible that this is the same defense. Yep.
No, I know what you mean. And I mean, talking about it that way and talking about they are 3 of pretty much the same goals. They were all attacking the Crew's defensive left side. They knew what they wanted to do and they did it. They did it really well tonight.
Let's just break it down real quick. 59th minute, same deal. Pozuelo's outside of the 18-yard box. He scores. Almost identical to the Altidore goal, except for this time he catches Room flat-footed. And then the 76th minute, Larea, who I believe had 2 assists on the night as well, dribbles the ball in from the right, just right by Valenzuela, right by Santos. Neither of them even go for a tackle. It's a pretty difficult angle, but he scores. So we're at that point. Hold on. This will be a break in the podcast because I've lost track of how many goals we're at. What was the final score?
3-1.
3-1. Okay. Sorry about that. And back. So at that point, we're down 3-1. And the reason I just say let's skip it, let's skip through all of those, is because I have several more notes of the exact same chances. Pozuelo takes a shot from outside.
Relive all of it. Yeah.
Pozuelo takes a shot from outside of the 18 off the inside of the woodwork. I mean, we had a lot of chances that Toronto had where an inch to the left, an inch to the right. Toronto could have won this match 5-1. And I say 5-1, we didn't even score. Toronto scored for us. So the end of the match, it's 3-1. It's the most anybody's ever scored against Columbus in a match this season. It is also the first time Columbus Crew have allowed back-to-back goals this season in terms of matches, back-to-back matches that we had been scored on.
At first I was like, back-to-back? Never mind.
I worded it weird. I'm
It's
frustrated.
okay.
I'm
Yeah, it's an
emotional.
angry night
I
for you.
told you I've had a tough time. So that's
Oh.
the end of the match. And what to say about it? What do you want? I mean, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to just move on with our lives? Because look, the bottom line is the debate could be had. Were we exposed? Wasn't an off night. One of the two, maybe a combination of both of the two is true. But whatever side you pick, do you think Columbus is the best team? I think tonight doesn't change that for you. I think you can come out and defend it and say we had an off night. If you are somebody who has maybe been a little more cautious this season and somebody who's been referred to as a wet blanket for saying that maybe we've benefited from an easy schedule and maybe when we get against
It's
the
easy
Toronto
to
FC's.
play. It's easy to be pessimistic, and you were being pessimistic even whenever the matches weren't going this way. You were still being pessimistic. So it's not.
I don't say
It's easy.
pessimistic. I say realistic. I wrote an article before the season started saying
Oh
we
my
were
God.
winning the MLS Cup.
See, that was more of pandering to an audience than
that
it was.
might be true. That might be true. But I legitimately think this club can win the cup. That is not pandering. I think this team is
I don't
good
think tonight
enough.
changes it. I think tonight, if anything, will make them work even harder defensively. Because throughout the matches this season, I've shared on here and just talking with folks and writing, like a couple folks from other teams have asked us to write stuff for their blogs and their websites, and I've written so many times how much they hustle on defense and how much these players go back on defense and they get into the right spots and they crowd the box.
Right.
Tonight, when Josie scores that goal, we don't have anywhere close to what we usually have in the box. Usually,
and the bodies we had in the box got out of the way of the ball. We've talked about it where the dedication to defense this season, guys are going in with reckless abandon. Not this game. This game, it was like, oh, there's a ball coming.
They abandoned defense altogether at some points. Yeah,
they played soccer like the way I played soccer in high school, which is this ball is going to hurt me if it hits me. I'm getting out of the way. And
you played in high school?
I did. I was adorable. And with Josie Altidore at the end of that ball, I would have also ran out of the way. I'm not faulting that, but I also wasn't playing soccer at the highest level, and neither was
Harrison did try to get in the way. Much respect to Harrison. Awful. He did try to get in the way. He turned his back to it, but it was too late.
We'll talk about Harrison Awful. What I want to finish with my wrap up. What I want to say is, I was thinking about this before the game because I had a pretty good feeling we were going to lose this game. I predicted that we would lose this game 2-1. I was pretty close. We lost 3-1. I wanted to be wrong, but here's what I thought. Look back at the season we've had and the tough wins we've had. Who would you consider the tough wins that we've had this season? The wins that you could look back and be like, those are good teams that we've made a statement beating. There's two teams. For me.
It's relative. I mean, you gave up a late penalty against Seattle when away from home. You gave up a late penalty against Seattle when your team is only the second match they've played against each other. Mm-hmm. You got to draw out of that. We played a New York team that came off of the best. They were one of the best teams in the East last year, and we beat them at home in the first match. And they're a team that's recovering from having a rough spell at the beginning of the season. We beat Philadelphia
in form.
1-0.
That's the teams that were in form.
Was a good one.
Philadelphia and Minnesota are the two big wins I
Seattle.
Point to this season. Seattle we didn't beat, we drew. But
you can't say coming back from 2 goals down against Chicago was bad for the team. Those kind of matches will push the team.
I'm not disparaging those results. I'm not disparaging those results. No,
That's exactly what you're doing.
I'm saying no, I'm not. Those were draws. I'm talking specifically about wins.
I gave you a list of matches. I gave a list of matches, and you disparaged them. That was because the definition of disparaging.
I asked you for wins, and here is why.
I'm not going to fit your narrative, Andrew.
You have to. It's my podcast. The reason I don't care about the draws is because you do not advance in the MLS Cup playoffs off of a draw. There is no aggregate system. There is no draws advancing you. You will go to penalty kicks.
Well, you get extra time, and you get penalty kicks.
And you get penalty kicks where we have failed miserably this year. Miserably in penalty kicks. We cannot convert a penalty kick through the course of a match, and we got knocked out of the MLS's back tournament on penalty kicks. So why I don't want your draws is because
MLS
you
is
can't
bad.
advance on a draw. So why I
Your
ask
team
for
can
your
get better
wins,
from a draw.
you can. But my specific question, my specific point that I want to get to here is, if we make it to the playoffs, Minnesota United do not have experience in the playoffs. Okay? Philadelphia Union are not a typical playoff powerhouse. Toronto FC have made 3 MLS Cups in 4 years? These are the kind of teams we have to get past in the playoffs. I'm not worried about Chicago Fire in the playoffs. I'm not worried about these. I'm worried about the teams with MLS Cup experience. Columbus Crew, it's been a minute since we sniffed a cup, all right? And when we did sniff a cup, it didn't go very well for us. I'm looking long-term
Didn't
at
Seattle win one of those recent ones?
and we drew them. I am talking about what can we do against MLS Cup caliber teams with this current form and this current season. And that is the games I'm looking to decide, do I really think we are going to take it all the way this year? Or do I think we're going to have a solid year that we can be proud of, perhaps even a supporter shield, because we are still it's not like the rest of the season is tough team. I think we play Philadelphia Union again. Outside of that, we play Cincinnati again. We play FC Dallas. We play some teams that aren't exactly in form. So I think we can. I think it's very realistic we win the Supporters Shield this year. In fact, my question is, these are the games you have to look to, because these are the kind of games we're going to have in the MLS Cup playoffs. Does tonight change anything for you in terms of, do you think this team can make it through a one-game playoff system? There are no aggregate games anymore. It is not, you lose, you're knocked out. Do you think this team has what it takes to go against the best of the best that have experience winning MLS Cups recently? That's my question. That's all I'm trying to get to, Tommy Flip Flops.
Well, you tried to set me up, and I'm not gonna play your game of checkers. I'm not gonna let you hop over and king me. No, I don't think it changes that they're the best team in the league. I think that they'll still come out of a match like this much better next time around. And we've seen that in matches. We've seen them coming down from like the Chicago match was a huge one. I know you're going to disparage Chicago because that's your theme tonight is disparage, but they coming down 2 goals to come back from that was without your 2 best players on offense.
It proved
was a lot. And I think that this match tonight, we'll see what happens a week from now when they travel all the way out to Dallas.
We are not just out. We are not just out Darlington Nagbe. We are also out Fatai Alashe. We are down to a rookie third-string defensive midfielder. I am not going to say if Darlington Nagbe started this game, we would have lost 3-1. We have seen that Darlington Nagbe changes games. You put Darlington Nagbe into this team, that changes the outlook of these performances. I truly believe that. So when we head into MLS Cup playoffs, hopefully, I think according to everything we know, Darlington Nagbe is going to be there. I'm not. Yeah.
I think even with him tonight, we lose. I think there's
a good chance.
There were issues tonight that even with one, he's not going to change a 3-1 loss where we didn't score any goals ourselves. I think that when we'll talk about our players of the match, I will share that. I'm really teasing that. I'm not gonna. I keep wanting to talk about it.
We're gonna move on to it quickly because we've stayed here too long. But I want to say, I want this to be clear. I have been, for where the wet blanket comes from, for anybody who hasn't figured it out by now, is early on into the season, I posted a tweet comparing our start to this season to our start to last season. They were very similar starts. And I said, a hot start does not necessarily mean a hot year. To which I was told, quit being a wet blanket. We have the best defense in the league, or something along those lines. I want to make it clear to anybody listening to this podcast.
Not going to do this again.
I am merely playing devil's advocate here. For me, my reality lies somewhere between we are the greatest team the world has ever seen and we have had an easy schedule. My reality lies somewhere in between there, where I say it's important to acknowledge we have had an easier road to where we're at than some other clubs have. But I don't care what team you're playing against, the defensive start we had against professional soccer teams is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an asterisk to be had, but like I said last week or the week before, or I lose track. We do a lot of these podcasts this year with the way the schedule is going. Any negative asterisk we have should come with positive asterisks. We're playing with injuries. We're playing 2 to 3 matches in week spans. We have also overcome a lot to put on, 30 points in 13 matches before today.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take away from that no matter what. But I think the conversation deserves to be had. So that's, I waited to have you on the podcast to have that conversation, and you happened to come on when we lost 3-1. So you got to have that conversation with an emotional Andrew. So we're
I'm not
out
going
of
to feed into this anymore. We're moving on. I'm not going to say anything else.
We're done with it. Columbus Crew's the greatest team the world's ever seen. That's been easier to say until this match. You don't get to play for the Crew if you're not an elite caliber player. You have to be the best. So with that said, it's time to give our best player of the match and our worst best player of the match. Thomas, who's your best?
I'm going to give my best to Artur, not only for his performance on the field, 39 out of 42 passes in the first half. So in absence of the name that shall not be said, because we've already said it too many times, with his absence, it's nice to have a midfielder who can connect passes and move the ball around, because that's something when you have a young guy next to you, you really have to be cognizant of. You have to be mindful of that and make sure that you're doing things well and getting the passes where they need to go, moving the team down the field. It's not a stats driven really position, and I could talk about assists or goals, especially tonight, but I'll give it to Artur, and also because it's his 100th match with the Crew. So congratulations, Artur. 100 matches. I can't believe it. I felt like it's been much more.
I don't feel like it's been much more.
I'm happy that he's on the club.
I feel like he just got here. Like, for whatever reason, I feel like Artur hasn't been here that long. And
time is a flat circle.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, credit where it's due. That's awesome. 100 matches, I believe, in 4 years. That's a big deal. Artur's the man. I love Artur. It's hard for me. I want to jokingly give my best to whatever Toronto player scored for us, because do I feel super great about any Crew player? No. I'm going to give it to Harrison Awful, and I'm going to give it to Harrison Awful because I saw a lot of hustle from Harrison when a lot of other people seem to just chalk it up as, well, this game's over. Let's get through.
That's his calling card. Hustle, hustle, hustle.
Yeah. So
he passes, he hustles. Yeah, he shoots. Yeah, I like him.
Let's give it to Harrison. That's my best. Who's your worst best?
My worst best tonight, and this is tough, especially coming from 3 matches in a row where it was MLS Team of the Week caliber matches. I'm giving it to Pedro Santos tonight. I think that he did not have a great night. We jokingly talk about the own goal and the assist from the own goal, but that's great. That's good luck. These matches, luck happens in sports, especially I think in soccer, you do get a good amount of it. But in the second half, woeful. His defense was awful. And you told me before the pod, well, he's not known for his defense, and that's great. But this team is known for hustling back on defense. We talked about it earlier about getting people back, but he wasn't. I mean, the first goal that we gave up in that second half, before the pass, before the cross in, before the defense was kind of standing around, he was there first, and he allowed that to happen. He slipped, which tonight so many players were slipping.
Everybody slipped.
They talked about it in the second half. Neil was talking. Brett Hildebrandt was talking about it on the Fox Sports Ohio telecast, where they said the grass was much longer at this field than it was at other MLS stadiums, which I don't know. They weren't making excuses, but people were talking about it. There were sources at the stadium actually giving this information to him.
It sounds an awful lot to me like somebody coming on and saying, well, they traveled the same day. And
that was in halftime before these goals started. So that's why you can take it, because in the first half, Zardes slipped probably 2 or 3 times in the box. But anyway, I digress. So Santos slips. Gets up, doesn't really get back into the play, which is not his fault. They've already moved up the field, all that stuff. It creates the goal. Third goal, you talk about Santos. He tries to come in to help out. He tries to come in to try to tackle, but he just really runs in front of the guy, and then he stands a foot or two behind him, and then just watches it develop. He's like, "Oh well, I've missed it. I guess we'll just see what happens." Like at the beginning of the match, they were double teaming him. He was getting a lot of attention, but then you didn't have to anymore because he wasn't giving that performance tonight. He wasn't giving that team of the week performance, which it reminded me more of a newer Pedro Santos than it did somebody who is on the team and gelling.
So here's my question.
Yeah.
Are you giving Pedro the worst based off how good he has been up until today? Because
No, no. I think the team is about improvement and elevating it. And I know you're not going to be amazing every night, and I wasn't expecting him, goals and assists every night that he goes out there. But
which, I mean, to be fair, it won't count as an assist, but Pedro got the only assist of the game.
Like you said, it doesn't count. It's effort is a big thing for me. I like watching matches, and I like seeing more effort in players, especially this team this year. That's what's been so good about it, is watching them have that effort. And I just don't think he was feeling it tonight.
Okay, I'm going to give an unpopular opinion. I'm going to give an unpopular worst best, but I got to pick somebody, and I can't pick the whole team, so I got to pick somebody. Elo Room is my worst best. He got scored on 3 times. 2 of those times he was flat-footed. It's something I've noticed, and I threw up a made-up stat to you before the game, and you yelled at me for it.
It was not mathematically
I said
possible.
something about 90% of the goals he's been scored on this season, he's been flat-footed.
And they were only 5 goals at the time.
Right. Look, his defense failed him miserably. And if he got scored on 3 times tonight, if he got scored on 5 times tonight, I wouldn't give him the worst just for the fact that he got scored on. What I'm saying worst is it's a pet peeve of mine that is with any goalkeeper. I hate seeing goalkeepers get scored on flat-footed. And I have noticed that a lot through the past few matches that he has been scored on. When he gets scored on, it's like he sees the shot coming and he's like, oh, that's not the direction I planned on it coming for him. And he doesn't. You almost see him like lunge to that side and then stop. Like if you would commit and you would dive and you would get there, at least you have a chance of stopping it. You said effort is everything to you. Dive towards that ball. Don't just stand there and that is, it's happened. It happened twice tonight. Flat-footed goals where he just turned and watched the goal go in. So
that's fair.
I had to pick somebody. He's who I picked. Thomas, this might come as a surprise to you because we argued a little bit today. We got into a little bit of a debate, but regardless, you are my best co-host, and you've earned yourself a plug. Where can these people find you? And I believe that you have a podcast.
Don't we all? Don't we all? No, I contribute on the Massive Report, which is probably why I got this gig. But also, I like to do a little podcast with my pal Bryant Caves. We talk about the Crew. We talk about the Premier League. We talk about the Women's Super League, Women's Championship. We really get into anything soccer related for the teams that we like. And there's a lot of random singing and stuff involved. It's just a pretty laid back, organic podcast, not nearly as sectioned out and planned like this beautiful Crew Review podcast
and
is.
Not nearly as confrontational.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, it's okay. I enjoy the confrontation. This is my outlet. So thanks.
I had fun with it. Well, for me, you can find me on Twitter at Andrew Atkins SC. You can find this show on Twitter at Crew Review Pod. Subscribe to us, like us, rate us, review us on iTunes. It helps out a lot. We really appreciate it. For all your Crew news, updates, analysis, go to massivereport.com and follow them at Massive Report. So our next match is October 3rd at FC Dallas. Thomas, who you got?
Columbus Crew, SC.
What's your score?
More goals for us than them. I'll give an upset 3-0 performance. I think we're angry. I think we come in there mean, and Caleb Porter doesn't like losing, and I think that's going to show on the field.
No argument. That was actually my prediction too. 3-0 Columbus. I think we're going to go in, and I think we're going to prove a point. I think we are going to play angry, and I think, like I said, this match exposes the crew. I think that Porter has the same kind of mentality of Porter doesn't sugarcoat things. Porter is he is a coach who will tell you like it is. I think he's going to go in that locker room and say, you guys were exposed tonight. It is now up to you to go out and prove that you're the best team in the league. I think we are going to see Columbus come out against FC Dallas wanting to prove that they are the best team in the league. Before we wrap up for the night, we have a final segment, something I like to call My Crew Review. What I ask you, the listeners, to do is go on Twitter, #MyCrewReview, and leave your review for the game. Thomas, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think tonight we have more or less My Crew reviews than usual?
I would say less, because I think everybody else wants to forget that the match happened also.
We have more because people are angry. So,
oh, wow.
Our first comes from...
I really let through my aggression much differently than other people, I guess.
Our first comes from Sean Atkins @ChefSean1. He says, you can ban me from watching now. A little context for that, because you weren't here last week. Last week, he tuned into the Minnesota game right before they started scoring. So we said that maybe he shouldn't watch the Crew. I'm guessing tonight he watched the whole game. And if that is the case, you are definitely maybe take a game off, just see how it goes. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to ban you permanently, but maybe just take one game off. The next one we have is from Shawshank SC @Shawshank SC. He says, second half was bootios, but we need to regroup. One bad half doesn't make a season. Oh, and #Josie still sucks.
No lies detected.
Nope. I believe it. The next one is Matt Fisher @Fish_out of H2O. Was it not our night, or that we needed Nagby, or a worrying sign? I think all three.
Rewind 45 minutes ago. I think you're going to hear all those things.
I think it wasn't our night. I think we needed Nagby, and I think it is a worrying sign. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think it is write this team off. I think it is good that it happened to us when it happened to us. I think it's good that we have 8 more games before the playoffs. Get humbled now, address it, and move on. Next one is Dan
shout out to Matt Fisher, fellow Liverpool fan, fellow Liverpool Columbus member, champions 2019-2020. Sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Next one is Dan @Solon TLG. Crew needed Nagby in this one. Thomas, you want to say no lies detected again?
I think anytime he's out of the team, you probably need him. So no lies detected, Dan LTG.
Having Nagby miss a game, I was trying to think the other day, what player would be more impactful to miss a game besides Darlington Nagby? There's one in my mind.
I think the next person who'd be important if we lost him was probably Jonathan Mensah, because I think your defensive line would be rough if you had Josh Williams and Abubakar Keita next to each other.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't even think about that. And that it's the nature of a defender. Sometimes you get overlooked.
When you're really good, you don't pay attention to them much because they're really good and they just do their job. And
for me, outside of Nagby, the worst loss of a player we could have would be Jossie Zardes, because Fernando Adi ain't going to cut the butter as a striker for our team. Ain't going to happen. Our offense will die. It just, bottom line, our offense dies if Fernando Adi is our striker. You'll have your Pedro goals still. You'll have your Zelarayan goals, but you need – Jossie has, 8-9 goals? You need him. Fernando Adi –
the Jordan Hamilton shade is real.
It's just the truth. Our last crew review comes from Christian Townsend @CG Town. Completely level-headed review. We need one. Thank you. I need something level-headed.
I felt like I've been level-headed the entire episode. You've just been trying to degrade everything that I've brought to you.
Completely level-headed review. It's time for a rebuild. Actual review. I really think this game demonstrates the importance of Valenzuela and how big of a drop-off there is behind him. Nothing against Jimenez. Great point. When Valenzuela came in, and we skipped over this, and we'll wrap up real quick because we don't need to get into a whole nother review of the game. Valenzuela came on, and it seemed like he was the only player on that field that wanted to win that game. He did not seem to have given up on that game. He was crossing the ball, whether there was a wall of Toronto defenders or not, he was trying to cross over and over again. Valenzuela, had he played for the entire game, he might have been my player of the game. So that's a very good point. And I'm glad that was a little reminder to throw some credit Valenzuela's way because he had a great game. If anybody, as much as anybody could have a great game.
Yeah.
Anything else you got to say? Anything else
No.
you need to say tonight?
The match is over, and we'll wake up and the sun will rise, and we'll we're in Ohio, so we won't see the sun, but the sun will rise, and we'll be better off next week for it.
We had a tough night, but we have had a historic season. Tonight does not change that. I believe we are still in first place in the Supporters Shield, first place in the East. There's nothing one loss does to knock that off, and we do have some games against not as tough teams to build up a little bit of a buffer so that we can afford these losses, because it's going to happen. And like you said, this doesn't change that. Sun's going to rise tomorrow, and we're still going to be the number one team in MLS.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for being here, Thomas. I had a great time. I needed somebody to argue with for a little bit.
Hey, I'm here to help you out with that. I'm
As
sorry
always,
I couldn't get to your level of anger.
Oh, we don't need two people this angry. So we needed somebody to come in level-headed.
Oh,
anyway,
fair.
As always, for Massive Report, I'm Andrew Atkins. This has been the Crew Review. Glory to Columbus, go Crew, and we will see you next time when we review
The Crew.
The Crew.